A vigilante is deleting people's databases.
So, hey, Karen, this week it looks like you have an interesting story for us about an attack on unsecured databases with an interesting name.
Yes, we can, although I'm a dog person, these are about meow attacks. I think this is an interesting story, and kind of like Stan is, why is someone doing this? But actually this is called meow attacks because someone is going out there and replacing file names on databases, unsecured databases, with a suffix that has meow at the end. And what they're doing is they're just wiping out all the data. This is not a ransomware. This isn't somebody asking for money and I'll give it back. They're just finding whatever unsecured databases they can and meowing and wiping all of the database. This seems to be happening with MongoDB and Elasticsearch. Seems to be where most of the deletions are coming. When I first read the article, the number of attacks at databases that had been wiped was 1,800. But that was only a few days ago, and the article's been updated, and we're closing in on about 4,000 databases. And in a couple of cases, it seems like maybe somebody was warned early on to take some action, but that doesn't seem to be the case in general, that just anything that's been found has been wiped. If you have a database out there with data that you care about, which you presume most databases are, obviously, these are all unsecured databases that are accessible to whoever's doing this. But again, kind of like your story, Stan, motivation unclear, certainly not as harmless as HackerMan. But also just an interesting development that I just thought it would be interesting to talk about.
I think you're right. These are sort of similar themes to these stories, and again, you think down the road of like, what's the motivation behind this person doing this, and it's hard to understand. But you would guess that it's something like hard knocks lessons for admins out there. Or development teams, whoever owns the database. But, certainly I think this person's trying to make a point that, hey, these things are unsecure. They shouldn't be out here. I'm not exactly, behind the don't give anybody any warning about that they're out there and just literally just go wipe them out. And hopefully folks do have backups of this data. But if they don't, it's certainly going to be a hard lesson for those people to learn that, hey, these things were open, somebody got to them, and unfortunately you lost everything.
I think anyone who's been in security for a little while, especially in the incident response role, has learned that it's hard to convince system owners to clean up their stuff. So whoever is doing this it must be like at the end of their rope, so to speak, and must have gone through that situation so many times that they're like, you know what, I'm not submitting a bug bounty. I'm not trying to figure out who the contacts are. I'm just going to wipe the database, and they'll know it's broken because the data is gone. That would be the easiest way to explain the activity. Of course, you hope it's not something more nefarious than that. But it's definitely... I could see something like that happening.
I think I agree with you, Stan, that it's not hard to imagine that this could very possibly be a disgruntled bug bounty reporter. So, just working through some of the processes of going and going to many different companies' bug bounty programs and trying to submit bugs and either being told like that's not a bug, being, or ignored, right? That's probably the worst, is them just being ignored, and ignored, months over months. We've seen stories many times like where, the reporter's trying to let them know for 3, sometimes 6 months, and the company does nothing. And then finally that reporter just has to go, okay, I'm just going to publicly release it then. So I can imagine that this could be somebody who's just, made a living of this and finally just got tired of it and said, you know what, I'm just going to teach everybody a lesson.
It certainly is a dangerous action to take for some data sets because you might be, compromising like a hospital or something like that without realizing it, or something critical.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, Karen.